There you go.
Thank you very much. I welcome everybody on behalf of the Women Ring, also the CSW Vienna, and also the African Women Organization. And I thank you that you are really participating today in our event. I want to thank foremost the Austrian Minister for Climate Action, Eleonore Gewessler. She will give us a video message to our topic. Thank very much Fides Raffel, who will moderate this event. Fides Raffel is from Frauendomäne, and she's the executive board member there. And Frauendomäne has a very big database where experts you can find experts, but if you're an expert, you can also go there and give your own information in as an expert. And it has a www.frauendomäne.at. So, my further thanks goes to all the panelists. Ingeborg Geyer, the chairwoman of UN Committee on Sustainable Development, Klaudia Frieben, the chairwoman of the Austrian Women Ring and deputy federal chairwoman and Federal Women's Chairwoman Association of PROGE. PROGE is the labor union. I thank very much Marie-Christine Hopfgartner. She's the officer of the Federal Ministry for Climate Action and Austrian delegate to the United Nations Climate Negotiations. My further thank goes to Sara Schaupp and Barbara Stechel, they are from the Solidarity Farmers, and to Mrs. Klara Butz. She is from the Climate Activists Frides. As you see, we have a broad range of experts here from almost all levels. We wanted the farmers in, the activists in, the ministry in, the labor union in, the women in, and of course the UN in. And I thank all of you, and I wish all of us a very inspiring and motivating and successful event. Thank you for all your coming. And I wanted to thank in the end also Sophie Rengel. Sophie Rengel is one of the founder of the Frauendomäne. She mainly organized and coordinated the panelists and everything. She can, due to other reasons, not be here, but my thank goes also to her very much. Thank you, and I wish us a very good day. Fides, you have the floor.
Hello, thank you. I'm really sorry. I was gone for a second, internet-wise, but I'm really happy to be back and provide you with the promised small keynote from the Austrian Federal Ministry. And I would like to give the floor to just a second. I'm really sorry. We're gonna have to stop that for a second and start again. I will let the last person in so she can see the video from the very beginning. And you shall be able to see my screen and the video now.
Dear participants, the topic of this event is climate justice and the impact the climate crisis especially has on women in rural areas. As the minister responsible for climate action and as a feminist, this is a topic close to my heart and important to my work. Because women are especially vulnerable to all kinds of crises. This is apparent during the ongoing COVID crisis and all its effects on healthcare workers, parents, children. And this is also true for the climate crisis. Many women are working in areas which are particularly affected by the climate crisis, especially in rural areas of this world. For example, the production of food, droughts, floods, extreme weather. All those are making farming harder, less profitable, and more dangerous. Another example is energy poverty, which also has an overly disproportionate effect on women. Women are still doing the main share of care work. They are spending more time in their homes, which in winter are often badly heated or not sufficiently cooled in hot summers. This makes women much more vulnerable to health risk connected with climate change. And these are only two examples of how gender and the climate crisis are connected, and why we have to prioritize gender as a category in the policies we make. The fight against the climate crisis is also a social matter. The solution must include the establishment and strengthening of gender equality all over this planet. This is what you all are working on here today. This is what I am trying to do every day. We have to keep on fighting to make this world more just and equal for women, but really for all of us. This is one of the key solutions to making us more resilient and stronger for the crisis we are facing now and the crisis that lie ahead.
Thank you very much for listening, and we're actually already really excited for the first of the keynotes that we're going to hear today. Before we start with Klaudia Frieben, I would like to just say a few words about questions that may arise. We're happy for you to engage in a wonderful discourse after the keynotes. Maybe one or the other question might be raised in one keynote and then answered in the other. So we're happy for you to get all your questions answered in the Q&A session after the keynotes. And for the first impulse, I would love to welcome Klaudia Frieben on stage. She is the Deputy Federal Chairwoman and Federal Women's Chairwoman of ProG and Chair of the Austrian Women's Ring. And we're going to not only welcome you on stage, but I'm sure also see your presentation, and I'm going to pin you as well so everybody can see you the best way possible. Klaudia, please.
Thank you, Fides, for your work and for your organization. I also welcome you to this side event of CSW66. My name is Klaudia Frieben. I'm the chair of the Austrian Women's Ring, the biggest NGO for women in Austria, and a vice president and a chair of Women's Committee of the Austrian Industrial Manufacturing Union. And today I want to tell a little bit about, I want to speak about the situation for women in green tech. In the world of work, and what we want, what is our goal? Our goal is a good life for the future for the women. And I begin with my presentation. So I hope you see my presentation. Yes, I will begin a little bit with what is necessary for women in green tech, and what are the chances and what are the changes in the work in the work area, and is everything green in the area of women? Yes, what are the situation? Digital and green technologies the new green and digital technologies are becoming an important part in our everyday and professional lives. The world of work is changing, a fundamental process, especially for women. But the change is not a gender-neutral process. It will have a major impact on women and their life. But this change can also bring new opportunities and chance for women. What changes can be expected in the transformation? As mentioned, it is not a gender-neutral process, so we have to have a special look at the situation for women. Low-skilled, semi-skilled, and or unskilled jobs where many women work will disappear. It will mostly affect women. especially in the information and communication technology. It is a challenge for women. Information and communication technology is important for the industry, but also for services, example for the care, one of the greatest challenges facing society in the future. The gender gap in the information and communication technology sector is very large. Essentially, this is a branch of a male branch and diversified. Because you find here engineers, programmers, computer scientists, consultants, and marketing, sales, and law. So, what are now the chances for women and their work in the future? Maybe they will have a chance for further communication. Maybe they will have a chance for training and further education. They will have, hopefully, the chance for a higher lifetime income. They will have, hopefully, the chance of social security and economic independence. They will have, hopefully, the chance for a good life in the future. So we have to discuss and to demand what to do and what women need. They need the right to general lifelong training, regardless of age, employment contracts. They must have the right for a workplace without discriminations against older workers or part-time workers. The promotion for girls in the MINT subject is necessary to get also a higher life in the future. The chance for girls and young women in the at the labor market after graduation in a MINT study or education. Important is the elimination of the gender pay gap. It is one of the biggest problems everywhere in the whole world. Equal pay for the same activity is necessary and fair. Work-life balance through a fair division of paid and unpaid working hours, childcare during and after training and education. I will come to the role of the trade unions, because I am a trade unionist and I want to take what must trade unions do, or what can trade unions do to make a better life for women. Trade unions are an important part of the labor market. Trade unions are responsible for negotiations in collective bargaining. Collective bargaining must ensure with legal rights that the digitalization process will be fair and positive, especially for women. Trade unions have to discuss the new digital skills, task and job categories in negotiations with the employers. Trade unions can be an important part that women become the access to long life training and to protect women for unemployment. It will be also necessary to have a critical view of teleworking, so that women do care work as part of their gainful employment. They also have the right to protect themselves and be part of the employment participation. Important is the elimination of the gender pay gap in the whole world. Women must be paid equally for the same work. We have to discuss the reduction of working hours to split paid and unpaid work, if possible, without loss of wages. We need gender-specific studies for the necessary need of education of the gender effects in the workplaces for women and men. Especially after the COVID crisis, we need stimulus packages that affect both women and men for a good work and a good life in the future. So I will come to the end. What is important for women? work and life, especially for girls and women, with same chances and same rights must be our goal. It is an important contribution for a life without violence and for a good life in the future. Thank you very much for the attention, and I send you Women's Solidarity greetings from Austria.
Thank you very much for the first keynote, and obviously you're more than welcome to react to those. If there are any questions that may arise, again, please keep them for the question and answer session. I have to admit that there was a mix-up because I didn't see Ingeborg Geyer, who was supposed to give the first impulse and who is obviously now welcomed on stage next. She's the chairwoman of the UN Committee on Sustainable Development, and we're really excited to have you. Please give us your insights on the topic. Careful, you're still muted.
Apologize. Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you for this kind invitation, and it is an honor for me to be invited to this panel as chair of the NGO Committee on Sustainable Development. I'm also representing Sonntag International at the UN in Vienna, and I would like to come back more or less to the kind keynote from our minister, as I would like to address achieving climate justice by focusing on the committee's activities on the Agenda 2030 through the lens of Vienna-based agencies, by linking crime prevention and criminal justice in a new way. And I now see that oh yeah, now it is working. My PowerPoint did not work at the moment, so yeah, we are linking the Agenda 2030 through the lens of Vienna-based UN agencies. We are focusing on Goal 16, the rule of law, and Sustainable Development Goal 17, partnerships for the goals define the philosophy Agenda 2030. We have already heard one presentation of a partnership organization. The SDGs can only be achieved when all countries, all societal groups, and all human beings work and act together in a way that strengthens and supports actions and measures. This implies respect for the natural environment, enhanced cooperation between regions and continents, and full implementation of all the relevant UN conventions underpinned by close cooperations of the convention secretariats and, of course, to the national level. The concept note of this event starts with a quote: "Women are living on the front lines of climate change and are ready to be active partners in dealing with climate change. If the international community is serious about addressing climate change, it must recognize women as a fundamental part of the climate solution." A quote by Wangari Maathai, environmental activist and Peace Nobel laureate. And this is exactly what we like to do as a committee on international level at the UN in Vienna. International environmental cooperation is key for prevention of environmental crimes, and it is key for climate justice and key for protection of climate activists. That means we have to work globally, regionally, nationally on the rule of law and good environmental governance, public and consumer awareness, financial support and economic incentives, and promoting environmental defenders, and work together with environmental CSO. Public participation in decision-making and access to justice, as it could be, the Aarhus Convention is such an overarching instrument to encourage people to cooperate, as information and participation of stakeholders is a key element in fighting crime and corruption. The Aarhus Convention focuses on interactions between the public and public authorities in a democratic context. It is ratified by 47 countries, the European Union. By the way, Austria joined in 2005. It is based on 3 pillars: access to information, public participation in decision-making, and access to justice. The Escazú Agreement on Environmental Rights is a new legislation for Latin America and Caribbean. It is designed for this region and it is based on 4 pillars. The 4th pillar is especially protecting human rights and environmental rights defenders. Member states adopted in 2020 a resolution on preventing and combating crimes that affect the environment, falling within the scope of the UN Convention Against Transnational Organized Crime. And in paragraph 16, cooperation with the secretariats of UN conventions is requested to achieve the goal of reducing environmental crime. In 2021, the Commission drew up a new resolution, even more encouraging, to include civil society and other stakeholders. The NGO committee referred to these resolutions and called on the representatives of United Nations member states at various meetings to consider that the Agenda 2030 can only be achieved when all people, regardless of age and ethnicity, in particular women and girls who do not always have access to information, are informed in a transparent manner and appropriately told. You can read the full statement through the link on the screen in the chat. Crime prevention and criminal justice is based on human rights approach. The right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment needs a strong criminal justice instrument to stop crime to the environment. Ecocide is broadly understood to mean mass damage and destruction of ecosystems, severe harm to nature, which is widespread or long-term. Ecocide, committed repeatedly over decades, is a root cause of the climate and ecological emergency that we now face. Ecocide, a collaborative woman-led movement addressing protection of Mother Earth to making ecocide the 5th international crime. The NGO committee will host a side event at the upcoming CCPCJ in May 22 to promote this initiative, and as far as we are informed, the Austrian government is supporting this initiative as well. A statement for COP26, signed by over 100 NGOs in consultative status and mainly drafted by Ilona Granitz, the former chair of the committee, is addressing the needs of mitigation, adaptation, participation, and cooperation, and the financial frameworks. It starts with a call to act now, to mitigate and adapt to climate change. I am just quoting one sentence. The regional focus should be on planning, land use, settlements, and infrastructure, as well as forestry and agriculture. The global rise in temperatures and the related changes in the spread of disease pose an inordinate challenge for public health systems. It also calls for participation and cooperation on all levels. Action plans for adaptation may result in significant changes to regional patterns of settlements and lifestyles, and may have a disproportionate effect on marginalized populations, including minorities, women, and children. New formats for democratic participations are thus called for. You can read the statement as said here in the on the screen. On the slide, you see a picture. On the slide, you see the picture of an environmental study in the mountain region of Tyrol. It is a good example of international research cooperation by field research, collecting and comparing data to learn from the past and similar accidents in other regions to mitigate and adapt locally. And these findings must be transformed and to the public. It must be communicated to the local politicians and the public for better understanding. As for instance, the Alpine regions, floods and mudslides from torrents repeatedly cause major damage, both from financial and humanitarian, due to stones and tree trunks being carried along. The extent of the destruction is often much greater than with conventional floods, as we experienced last summer. Inhabitants have knowledge and experience about the changing environment in their landscape, and especially women play important and multiple roles in agriculture, as the analyses by Theresa Oedelwieser and other authors are presented in their studies. The authors stress the relevance of social and professional networks for women and the relevance and importance of participation of women and their promotion in local and regional decision-making bodies. This again refers to the above-mentioned resolutions and the statements of our committee. Including more women on local and regional level in decision-making and legislative process would definitely improve the quality of the environmental decisions and outcomes. In this respect, women, and especially rural women on the forefront of agents of change, need our full support and understanding. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for the insights, and we're really happy to, I think, already see after 2 keynotes that there are very, very different approaches, all of them equally important and equally highlightable to this topic. And I would love to welcome on stage, please prepare your presentation, Marie-Christine Hopfgartner, officer at the Federal Ministry for Climate Action and Austrian delegate to the UN climate negotiations. Thank you very much. We're really excited for your input.
Thank you very much for having me. Can you see my slide? Thank you. Good afternoon, dear participants. Thank you for the opportunity to present you some remarks to this very important discussion. My name again is Marie-Christine Hopfgartner, and I'm this year part of the Austrian delegation to the 66th CSW and a permanent delegate of the Austrian delegation to the UNFCCC since 2017. And since 2019, I'm the nominated national focal point for gender and climate change. Climate change is a global challenge that burdens all of humankind, but not equally. While progress on gender equality has undeniably been made in the past decades in many fields, it is also a fact that women and girls continue to face violations of their human rights on a daily basis, particularly in rural areas. Across the world, gender shapes everyone's expectations, characteristics, roles, abilities, and rights. While climate change affects everyone, women are often disproportionately negatively affected compared to men and are also less involved in causing the climate crisis. Inequalities in general are not caused by biological differences, but by social gender and the corresponding social role attributions. The gender dimensions of climate change are definitely multi-layered, but I will try to highlight some overarching aspects without claiming to be exhaustive. Why are women disproportionately affected by climate change? Firstly, because of their multiple, often traditional roles as food producers and providers, as guardians of health, and as caregivers. Secondly, due to the inadequate and unequal access to essential resources such as land, water, energy, finance, information, and technology. Women's reliance on climate-sensitive livelihoods, particularly in rural areas, as well as discriminatory gendered social norms, make them extremely vulnerable to climate change and undermine their capacity to adapt and respond. But women are not just victims of climate change and disasters. They demonstrate extraordinary powers of resilience during disasters, and they can also be powerful agents of change, especially in terms of mitigation and adaptation to climate change. Past projects have shown that women play a crucial role locally in responding to the climate crisis, as they have knowledge and leadership skills, for example, sustainable resource management, or in leading sustainable practices at household and community levels. Women's participation at the political level has led to greater responsiveness to citizens' needs, often strengthening cooperation across different parties. We know that at the local level, the inclusion of women at the leadership level has led to better results in climate change-related projects and policies. Conversely, if women are not included, it can reinforce existing inequalities and reduce effectiveness. Therefore, understanding how gender relations shape a community's response to disasters and climate change is critical to ensure effective program planning, as well as to ensure that women are empowered by the process rather than further disadvantaged. This applies to both developing and developed countries. Austria has taken a number of efforts to promote and support women's and girls' participation and leadership in the context of climate change on national and international level. I would like to highlight shortly two projects which support women in fighting climate change in rural areas. The first project, SAGES, addresses food security and gender justice. It is funded by the Austrian Development Agency and implemented by Caritas in the regions of Centre Nord in Burkina Faso, Kayes in Mali, and Kaolack and Tambacounda in Senegal. I hope I pronounced it not too bad. With the purpose to give women in agriculture a stronger voice and increase food security. The discrimination of women in both are cause and consequence of hunger and poverty, yet these areas are often treated separately. To achieve sustainable agriculture, access to resources must become gender neutral. Efforts to combat rural poverty and hunger will only be successful if the potential and needs of women are taken into account. More than half of the world's agricultural labor force are women, but they are rarely allowed to make decisions within households. These inequalities in agriculture also mean that women and girls are particularly at risk of hunger. The program SAGES focuses on 8,600 women working in agriculture, advancing their equality and autonomy. Women and men receive training. In addition, women in particular receive support in their access to land, operating inputs and markets, and infrastructures are created such as wells, grain mills, and improved stoves. That reduces the amount of time women spend on unpaid activities and make their daily lives easier. Furthermore, the measures taken will reach around 5,500 rural households who will benefit from the increased skills in sustainable agriculture and the positive impact of adaptation to climate change. Here are also the details to find more information on this project. The second project I would like to introduce to you is implemented in Ethiopia and is called SWEEP, Water for Food Security, Women's Empowerment and Environmental Protection. It is also funded by the Austrian Development Agency and implemented by CARE Austria. Ethiopia is one of the least developed countries in the world. 84% of all households are located in rural areas and depend on subsistence farming, which depends on rain-fed agriculture. The country faces recurrent drought and severe land degradation, which exacerbates the extreme poverty and a certain persisting cultural norms for women and girls continue to act as social barriers in the country. The aims of the project are to improve access to and manage of water resources, to reduce social barriers and promote gender equality through empowerment of women and girls, and to empower the local government and the population to jointly develop and implement initiatives to promote local development. The SWEEP project benefits over 130,000 chronically food insecure and drought-affected people in the North Gonda zone. 50% of the project beneficiaries are women, girls, unemployed youth, and people with disabilities. Measures implemented include, for example, the building or rehabilitation of nearly 300 water supply systems, 12 watersheds with an average size of 100 hectares are being rehabilitated, thus protecting natural habitats, and also 2,200 women, girls, youth, and other marginalized groups were trained in entrepreneurial and income-generating activities. If you're further interested in more details, you're also welcome to check it out on the website. There are many assessments to get into. I believe gender equality and women empowerment is key for securing the resilience of societies overall. Therefore, women and girls' participation within the planning, development, and implementation of climate change policies towards reaching the Paris Agreement goals is quite quintessential for our future. I would like to end with a famous and vital quote of Ruth Bader Ginsburg: "Women belong in all places where decisions are being made. It shouldn't be that women are the exception." And thank you for your action.
Thank you very much for your input. And I think this is the third kind of puzzle piece added to the manifold ways to approach this. Thank you also for the applied examples, and another applied example that I hope will bring us quite a few insights on what all of this looks like in practice, rather than from a more high and meta point of view, is what we're going to hear next. I would love to welcome Sara Schaupp on stage. She's part of the Solidarity Farmers, who you're hopefully going to tell us a little more about in just a second. And the stage is yours.
So, hello, thank you very much for having us. My name is Sara Schaupp. I am one of the workers and funders of Overtura, a community-supported agriculture, or as we say in Austrian, solidarische Landwirtschaft. Also, greetings from my colleague Barbara Spechtel, who could not attend today, but was very important in preparing the impulse for today. So, first of all, I want to explain a little what community-supported agriculture or solidarische Landwirtschaft is in the way that we practice it. So we are not owners and workers on a farm that sell to customers. We and all the people who eat the food from our farm, we share the farm and we share the vision. So we build an association, and this association runs the farm. And we do not only focus on the food that we produce, but we also strongly focus on the way this food is produced and on the way we organize the whole economic process of that. So we are about 100 members. Some of us are workers, many of them consume the food, and some of them are in organizational levels of the farm, paid or unpaid. And we sustain and own the farm together. The key points of our vision are diversity and small-scale production. So it's the complete opposite of the way farms have to develop under the economic pressure of the capitalist system, that we have to go towards a scale economy. We have to end diversification. We have to go forward towards monocultures and specialization. We want to go the other way. So diversity and small scale production is one of the key points of our vision. Then thorough animal welfare. We have animals, we have chicken on our farm, and we want to treat them as living individuals and produce in a way that allows that. Active wildlife conservation on site. So about 1/3 of our fields are wildlife conservation. And solidarity economy is another key point of our vision. So for the part of solidarity economy, I want to go a little more in detail here. We think that sustainable production must be accessible to everyone. That's why we try to organize our production in a way that everybody can afford eating our food. We, of course, have higher production costs than the average farm in Austria. So these production costs are covered by very individualized solidarity contributions. We do not have any prices at all. And the height of this contribution that a person gives, a member gives, does not at all correspond to the amount of food that is consumed. So in the beginning of the year, we inform our members about the total budget. Everybody informs us about their individual contribution, and we inform them back if the budget is covered. If that is the case, we start to produce, and people can take out the amounts of food that they need. So we see that in community-supported agriculture in Austria, there is more space for women to seize leadership. And we asked ourselves, how did that come about? One position that we hear a lot and that I personally strongly oppose to is a naturalizing position, like that environmental and social care, healthy nutrition, those are naturally female things. And that's why we see more women active in that area. Me and my colleagues and the people involved in Overtura, we think the situation is by far more complex than that. So we want to share with you a few viewpoints why this might be the case. We don't say that we see the whole picture. This is just a snapshot about our discussion at the moment, why we see that. So one idea might be the economic viewpoint. So if there is a just funded agriculture, there are in the beginning very low wages. And one perspective might be that they are more likely to be accepted by women, so they enter earlier in the process of funding as workers, therefore have more experience, and thereby take on leadership in the process. Another aspect could be gender socialization, so that the essential social component of community-supported agriculture is valued as an addition to the financial wages. So in this case, we could say this is more likely to happen, like I see it as a special value, as an added value to my wage, if I am socialized in the feminine gender role, might be supporting to the situation. One aspect might be that traditional gender roles in agricultural work and ownership do not apply so much in community-supported agricultures because they are mostly newly funded from scratch. So they are less impacted by the traditional structures of organization work and ownership in farms, mainly due to male heritage and role models that we have everywhere in our society, and especially condensed in the agricultural sector. And another aspect, I think, might be awareness. So I have the impression that people who are active in funding community-supported agriculture might show an above average awareness of gender issues and thereby also act differently in the way that they organize their whole structures and their ownership. So now I want to set the light on climate change, and in the first step, climate change mitigation and how we try to contribute. Generally, we can say we see ourselves as part of the international food sovereignty movement and really support all the actions that are taken in that way. And we see ourselves as a local approach to go towards food sovereignty and everything connected to that. But now, very much, what do we do on our fields in case of climate change mitigation? So one thing is that trees chill heat stress. And so we combine our horticulture, our gardening with the orchard. We combine very many things together. Thus, we also do circular farming. Inspired by permaculture or regenerative agriculture, that means we try to be very local about our resource chains and try to be very efficient in means of using the resources needed and produced on the farm on site. We are very inefficient, if you want to say, and about how much work and working hours we have as an input in our farm, but we really see the picture of efficiency by far bigger than how efficiency is discussed at the moment. And we want to really add to the efficiency discussion the question about circularity and ecosystemic consistency. Our poultry keeping, for example, on site is extremely small scale. We have less than 10% of chicken in one stall compared to the average chicken farm. This is because we try to use the food and the straw and everything that is needed. We try to keep it on a scale that can be produced on the farm, and also the waste that goes outside, the manure can be used on the farm again. Of course, we have short delivery distance. We are 30 kilometers south of Vienna. Everybody of the members is in about maximum 60 kilometers distance, and we try to provide foods that are alternative to imported or energy intense foods. So we provide a lot of like plant-based protein, vegan Zwiebelschmalz, things we make. We provide wheat rice instead of basmati rice. So we try also to have a small impact here in the way that people feed themselves. And last but not least, how does climate change at the moment affect our production? Well, I can only give you a very small insight on that, since I'm not an expert on climate change at all, but the things that we see on site and how we try to manage that. So in our area, we have very low rainfall. It's about 50% of the Austrian average with 500 millimeters. And now that stagnant weather conditions might be more common, this will most probably intensify the problem. We do have high groundwater levels, which is very good because we have our trees have direct access, because it's 1 or 2 meters. Our trees have direct access to the groundwater. It's a very huge groundwater lake. It's the Mitterndorfer Senke, but also this relies on snowfall in the winter from the Schneeberg region. So also the groundwater is intertwined with the whole situation, of course. Extreme weather conditions are also a problem for our soil. We have a very nutrient-rich soil, but it's enormously prone to wind erosion. So a few things that will be key in managing that in the future are drip irrigation systems and ways of cultivation that allow drip irrigation, which is a like water-saving way of irrigation. Intercropping, which means having the soil always covered with a crop, no open soils, or mulching, as you see in the picture there. This is straw with manure from our chicken stalls that we use to cover the beds here with sweet potatoes to keep the soil covered and bring back the nutrients. So this is against soil erosion and also for building up humus. And no-till farming is, in our view, also an opportunity to manage the challenges that climate change will give to us in the future. So I hope that I could give you a little insight on like a very practical approach of what we are doing here. And again, thank you very much for the time to tell you about this and for the other interesting talks so far.
Thank you very much. And I think that was absolutely necessary to add some practical viewpoint from somebody who is actually working in one of the projects, because I think it's really interesting to hear about the projects that we heard about in the previous keynotes in the Sahel zone, for example, but something that is so relatable and so close, and that is for most of us living in or around Eastern Austria is probably just a train ride away, that I think really makes difference in relatability. Another thing that I think is also kind of relatable, because we've not only heard the words quite often, but we've all been part of the genesis of the movements of Fridays for Future in the past couple of years, is exactly that. And we're excited to hear your point of view, Klara Butz from Fridays for Future, to add to the mix of what it really can mean to achieve climate justice from a female standpoint. The floor is yours.
Hello, thank you for having me. I have no presentation to share. I just have a few words to share, actually, because today I want to talk to you about climate justice, because as we all know, the climate crisis, that way, is extremely unjust. While rich countries have been burning fossil fuels over centuries now, poorer regions of the world are actually the ones suffering the most. So those who contributed actually the least to it are the ones suffering the most. And to address this inequality, we at Fridays for Future use the word climate justice. But what exactly is climate justice? What is a just approach to climate action and what is not? Vanessa Nakate, she's an Ugandan climate activist, brought up a great example on unjust climate action, because not every climate action is actually climate justice. So it became a trend to plant trees around the globe in order to compensate high CO2 emissions. Often these trees are then planted in regions of indigenous people, taking away their home. This is not climate justice. A climate justice approach is to include people into climate action and allow MAPA, so most affected people and areas, to do their just transitions. Economically richer countries, just as Austria, have more than enough on their plate with their own transitions toward climate neutrality. And we should definitely focus on our own stuff. So at Fridays for Future, we don't like to use the term Global South. Instead, we say, as I said before, MAPA, so most affected people and areas. As we have already heard in the statements prior to mine, women are affected more by the climate crisis than men. This also counts for MAPA. So women of MAPA are the ones most vulnerable due to their traditional gender roles, lower levels of education, and higher dependency on land. One possible definition on climate justice is to help those people who are affected the most by reducing inequalities and bringing CO2 emissions from countries of high economic wealth to a minimum. After all, these countries built their whole existence, just as Austria, on our CO2 emissions. A study published in Nature has computed that every 4,000 tons of CO2 emissions will cost one human life till 2100. We have calculated or computed how much this would be with Austria's daily emissions, which are 200,000 tons of CO2 every day. And with that, we seal the tragical fate of nearly 50 lives every day. So the role of Austria does not look negligible after all now, especially when we follow the principle of climate justice. We should not only look at the current CO2 emissions, but also at our historical share of emissions. So to take our part in the climate just world, Austria really has some catching up to do. So Austria has decided to go climate neutral by 2040. Great goal. We would have wished with 2030, but here we go. So now, how do we get to climate neutrality? That's why we need pathways and laws to ensure the way. However, Austria has no law on climate action for 442 days now. The old law just expired, wasn't a very good law anyway, and there is still no replacement. For us at Fridays for Future, there are some crucial points that need to be included into the law to ensure its effectiveness. So we say we need a compliant pathway to 1.5 degrees to reduce greenhouse gases. We need immediate measures in case of failure to meet the target. We need to anchor climate neutrality in the Constitution. That's very important. And we also need a fundamental right on climate protection in the Constitution. And also because of the well-known federalismus in Austria, we need those legal anchoring, this anchoring of climate protection in every country level. So of course, it's not just that one law that we need to have to get climate neutral, but we won't make it without it. We also really need to end our dependence on fossil fuels, like really now. We need dedication of land for wind farms and solar energy. There are already enough investments and subsidies for that. The real problem is actually that we don't have the workers who would do that, who have the expertise to build these wind farms and solar energy. For example, IG Windkraft suggested that Styria could produce 100% of its own power via wind farms. They just haven't used their full potential yet. So there is a shortage of skilled workers in Austria. And even though the energy sector and working in the energy sector is a very secure job in our society, we need more women in that field. We need more women in STEM, just as Klaudia Frieben already said. As a studied physicist and meteorologist, I see the number of women in STEM growing, but it grows slowly, and we definitely need more role models in STEM. And we also need more workers in the energy sector. So that's where it all comes together again. In a very, very oversimplified manner, of course, we need to stop our dependency on fossil fuels in order to get to climate neutrality. Male workers alone are not enough to cope with the demand of jobs. So women need to find their place in secure green jobs. And that's why we need more women in STEM. That's my take on that topic, and I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you especially because you're ending on such a very, very simple yet powerful message. We've heard a lot about very different points of view on the topic that we're going to approach from exactly those different angles today. And I think, and I hope it was really insightful for all of you. There is now room for questions. And we have a few more moments for everybody to actually really unmute themselves and ask questions to the various participants. And I would love to also stretch that obviously the participants can also answer questions jointly if their keynotes may apply to what the people may like to know. And we have 2 raised hands in case for reasons related to accessibility. Somebody cannot raise their hand. Please feel free to also write in the chat or unmute yourself. I would love to start with Christiane first and foremost, and then go to Sebastian Stoll, who raised his hand as well. Christiane.
Thank you very much. My question goes directly to Klara Butz, because I always like to hear there are jobs for women. So now, what can we do? How can they be trained? Where can they be trained to go into these jobs for the wind energy, for the solar energy? I think it would be very, very important to get the information, because we have enough women who are looking for a job. We have enough women who are even interested in such jobs, but I think they have not the clue where to go, how to do. So I would be very grateful if you could give us an insight on that way, backpage or whatever. Thank you very much.
Klara.
So I actually studied at university, so I studied physics and meteorology. So that's the only part where I'm really an expert in. And I do think we need more physicists on that topic as well. And also, and that's a good start, or a good way to go. But also there are really many trainings at, I don't know, Wien Energie, IG Windkraft, all that places where you can really learn the job really on hand. And I think that's where we need more women. So I don't really have the exact links now where we could send them to, but yeah, there are many trainings to go there as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I will go to Wien Energie. I will find out. Okay, thank you.
Marie-Christine, would you like to add something to that, please?
Yes, there is an Austrian initiative from the Ministry of Climate Action also in the Femtech area, which is fördern, was heißt fördern? Subsidizing internships, and also they have a Femtech platform where they also nominate each month a Femtech expert, and I'm going to share you the link, and there's some different information possibilities.
Thank you very much. A very direct answer as well. If there is anybody who has something to add, obviously we're happy to also share insights from within the participants. Other than that, and Sebastian Stoll has raised his hand, please.
Thank you very much for the presentations. My question is regarding the aim of the societal change, because I realized that I think that I'm the only male person in this call, and for like real societal change, especially for equality between the genders, I think it's tremendously important to address all the genders, to collaborate, to realize the change you're aiming for. And I was wondering, how do you try to or what is your plan for incorporating also more male people, or not women per se, for being part of this journey? Do you have any ideas or any methods how you plan to do that in the future? I know it's a really tough question and difficult.
And I'm sorry, and I imagine it goes out to all the panelists and other participants. Sara, please.
Yeah.
Of course, thank you very much for that statement, Sebastian. I strongly support what you're saying. I cannot give a big answer to that, but just from our personal experience, I think that it's very, very important. Yeah, I just think that it's very important that family planning and taking leadership in the job go together, and we really have to go towards other role models. There are really very few male people in partnerships that go to the Karenz or are active in the care aspects in the family. And for me, for example, I'm currently pregnant, and I just could go towards that situation because I know for sure that my partner will be in the Karenz and will take care of the kids and will be in the house so that I can fulfill my role on my job. That to me is enormously important. And I think I would not have had that chance the other way around. So on the level of the law, we have like very many chances to do that, but I barely see it anywhere around. Like the other women that I see and are in my age, most of them are the ones, the part of the partnership that stays home and does the care work. And I was wondering, how can there be a bigger change and a difference in role models towards that? Because for me, for like being in that leading role in my job and in my farm, that is key.
Klara, please add.
I think that's a similarity between the climate justice movement and the gender equality movement, where we can only address, or we mostly address, a certain type of group of people, and that's where we are good at, both in like when we speak to women and when we speak to other climate activists or to people who have already understood the topic. And I think it's important to do that, but it's also important that everyone who gets the topic and who knows the importance of it finds their role in it as well. So sometimes it's not important what is said, but who says something. So the most important part is probably to participate as a person themselves and really to spread the word everywhere. So probably it's not us who should find an answer for that, but maybe even you, Sebastian, as well. So we need everyone to spread the word, to spread the word, and to really find the right way to talk to people. And we all address different people, and that's good. So I think it needs every one of us.
Thank you very much for also stretching that the approach to achieving climate justice cannot go without intersectionality, right? And that, as Sara, you have said, the moment that an individual is trying to be part of Solidarische Landwirtinnen, of for example, or other things, other projects that we have heard, he or she will eventually become more aware automatically and then start to spread the word. So really this is a movement, or these are two movements that are very much intertwined and can't really go one without the other. Are there more questions that you may have for the panelists? Then please feel free to raise your hand or unmute yourself. Yes, please, Christiane.
Yeah, I have a question to Klaudia with the labor unions. How far can you motivate the women there and the men there now for the climate justice? Have you information to give in your own sectors to them where to go, where even to get the training or whatever?
Yes, thank you. I think we have to have a look at what how can we support women? How can we support women in technical jobs, in green jobs? And how can we have a look what make women now in these jobs? I said many women in these jobs are not low skilled, semi-skilled or unskilled, and they have what they need is more qualification. What they need is long life education. And I think we have to do this because when we have no programs to make women for these jobs, they will not have a job in the future. And there are many programs in Austria. One of this is FIT, Frauen in Technik, Women in Technik, from the Arbeitsmarkt service. And I think these programs are necessary to have a look that young girls can be able will be able to do these jobs, yes, and because these jobs are get more money, and the jobs are not. And we have to support women with all that they can support, that they can support their jobs and the care work, yes, they do, and so we have to support these girls, and we have to promote these programs.
Which actually brings us back to the responsibility and the power and the things that we can do on an individual level, of course, spreading the word and having people rewatch and rewind and repeat everything that we in a certain kind of bubble have been preaching for a very long time. Thank you very much for the question. Is there anyone else who would like to maybe also have a follow-up question to the ones already posed? Yes, Klara.
Not really a question, it's more of short advertising.
Please do.
Right. As you might have already heard, there's a global strike on Friday everywhere on the world, also in Vienna and 8 other cities in Austria. So I hope to see every one of you there. And for example, I know that the union is a very strong ally of Fridays for Future and very, very active also in the climate action. So I'm happy if you all join.
Thank you very much. And indeed, a perfect way of adding to the personal responsibility. And there was a raised hand for a second. Would you like to add something? And one of our panelists, please.
Sorry, thank you. It fits to all the comments now. Education is the key, and education and access to information and the proper language to inform people about findings, research, and so on. We shouldn't work in silos, and yeah, we are still working, or many organizations are still working in silos, and it's up to our women, I suppose, to open these silos and to network on all levels.
Thank you very much, which is very much what I think a lot of the people in this room, in this virtual room, are potentially doing on a day-to-day basis, which is wonderful. So we can only remind you and really encourage you and enable you to go out and do exactly what you have been doing and what we want to encourage you to do further. We've seen that no matter the way you approach these challenges is one step into the right direction, I think, especially when you look at how manifold the approaches we've heard about are today. And I think that is a really important part. And when we look at these intersections between climate change and female empowerment, I really loved what one of you on the panel said, which is that the real goal is to ensure that women are empowered rather than further disadvantaged. And I think that is very much the vision that we can all agree on when it comes to climate change and achievable goals that will also keep women not only in the loop, but actually have them have an equal say in all of this and in our future. Is there anybody who would love to add something? Otherwise, we have a little tradition. People that have been present for other moderations of Frauendomäne will know what's coming. We would love for you, because we're kind of speaking into this void of really small picture frames, for everybody to switch on their camera in the end of every event. So people who would like to rather not be in a screenshot picture can then log off, and others can be in the picture. We would love for everybody to switch on their camera real quick. We're not going to judge anything that we see, and take a group picture so we can kind of reminisce this moment a little bit afterwards, and maybe add it to the recording that I just want to remind you is going to be uploaded on the website right afterwards. So I can see people already showing their faces, looking a little enlightened after all the wonderful keynotes, which is what we love, which is exactly what we wanted to achieve. We will let you go in a second, but if you're here, if you're present, please feel free to switch on your camera. People may be in other windows or calls, which is obviously wonderful. I'm going to stop the recording now, just so you know, and thank you very much for your attendance today. We think that we've come across a lot of really interesting intersections between these two major points that are definitely going to shape the future, and how we address it is going to shape our future even more. Thank you for such wonderful keynotes, and thank you to all the panelists. And before